Stanley. I'm a London-based session drummer and I play the drums for a band called Iamwarface. And welcome to my very first online drum lesson. So I thought a great place to start, explaining drum parts and creating great content for people to watch would be going through stuff that I know best, which would be the songs that I play on a regular basis with Iamwarface. So basically the music we make is kind of a electro-rock fusion, leaning towards the heavier side of things, but always keeping a danceable kind of groove in all of the songs, and making sure that, there's kind of timeless melodies that you can remember. So what that basically means is a bunch of really fat sounding drum beats that work for the song, and drum fills that are in place to support the song, rather than anything really, really flashy. Of course, wherever I can, I like to embellish it, but it's all about the music and the song at the end of the day, so I can't take too many liberties. With that being said, all of the drum parts and all the things that I do in the song are tried and tested things that you can use. So if you're a beginner drummer or looking for new inspiration for stuff to do with one of your songs in your band, I hope this comes in useful. If you're an Iamwarface fan, well then I suppose you can see how all the parts are played. It's nothing really technical at all, but yeah, it's a lot of fun to play, and hopefully my explanation will give you some new knowledge and you enjoy watching it. So yeah, sit back and enjoy the lesson. Red Queen by Iamwarface. You can hear the track on any good streaming platform. It's from our debut album, Year of the Dragon, and you can also buy it in sexy red vinyl from www.iamwarface.com. So let's get into it. I think the first thing that kicked the song off, well, in my playthrough video of it anyway, there is a little 4-count kind of figure that kicks things off. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 3 counts on the hi-hat and a little kick and flam snare thing used by countless drummers throughout the ages, and certainly works here. It's not on the record version because that just comes in on beat 1 straight away. But when we play live, I'm playing to a click. I need to let the band know when to come in, and quite frankly, I think it adds a lot more punch to the song. So it's basically this. That's it. I'm sure everyone's played something like that before. The feel of the song is based on triplets, so everything is swung, if you know what that means. So the ride cymbal, or the riding hand, I should say, whether it's on the hi-hat, ride, crash, china, whatever, it is playing straight eighth notes, or quavers if you prefer. However, there is a swung emphasis to the way that I hit the cymbal, so it's not just sort of a really rigid kind of thing. And the way that the kick drums and the snare drums are placed against that is a dotted kind of feel, or a swung feel, whatever terminology you prefer. And that's basically to support the very strong triplets that the guitars and the keyboards are doing, while the vocals are following a more of a kind of a straight but meandering path. So it would make sense to do something like that, heavy groove kind of thing, like John Bonham sort of groove, rather than something like this. Or something like that. It just wouldn't work. It would sound too jaunty. And yeah, we were just going for a kind of a heavy Dave Grohl, John Bonham thing. So the main groove of the song when it kicks in is like this. Basically the kind of groove you're going to hear in any John Bonham, Dave Grohl type song, something like Aerosmith, Walk This Way. We've just taken it, made it heavier sounding, and that's pretty much it. 1, 2, a 3 and 4 and 1, 2, a 3 and 4 and So what I like to do is every 2 bars, I like to bookend the groove with something like an offbeat on the snare. So I could keep the same thing going, for the whole thing, the whole chorus, the whole intro, whatever. But I like to bookend it. So like that. That's all I do. Another thing that is quite signature to this song and a lot of the grooves that I play. It's just simple little drags leading into kick drums. A lot of drummers do this, and it's certainly a very effective kind of technique for this song where we want to have like a bit of a dirty feel. I could play it straight. Or I could add a little grease in there with some drags. Like that. So that's basically the part that I play there. At the end of that section, you'll see there's a little flam on the snare and a kick and crash pickup. 1, 2, 3, and 4 and. So that's it. That's all it is. And again, it's a trick used in a lot of songs, or a figure used, but the main thing is that it's the reason why I'm bringing it up rather is it happens numerous times throughout this song. There's slight variations on it each time, but it adds a really nice kind of bookend. Word I'm using a lot, but it does a nice bookend to the end of a chorus or whatever section it is, or halfway through a verse. It gives the song a bit of a theme. So I make sure to pick that up every time. It accents what the guitars are doing. And it kind of fits in with the vocals too, even though they're not doing exactly the same rhythm. So it would be like this. And that's used to join in, from chorus into verse, and it's used to join the two halves of a verse together as well. So that's the introduction of the song. Let's get on to the verse groove now. It's kind of 1 E, a 2 E, 1 E, da da, 1 E, a 2 E, a 3 E, a 4 E. 1 E, 2 E, 3 E, a 4 E, with some extra sauce on top. So, as you can see, I am doubling the first backbeat, and then I'm mirroring that double backbeat between kick and snare on the second one. So, first bit, second bit, and I added a swoop at the end of the groove, at the end of the phrase, I should say. There's nothing complicated going on at all, but if you do it wrong, it takes away from the feel of the song. It really does. And when I first started playing the song, when I listened back, I realized how much I used to rush some of the notes, just ever so slightly, that only that I would notice. But it's kind of a behind the beat, very greasy, kind of a Bonham-y, Dave Grohl type groove. So nothing technical, but it's all about how you play it. It's also got doubled backbeats, which if you've not played those before, it's quite a useful trick, and it definitely adds a different lope onto a lot of different grooves. So if you're a beginner drummer and you haven't tried it out, I'll hopefully explain it quite well. There's also two halves to the verse. It's just basically characterized by dynamics. So in the first half, the first kind of 4 bars or so, I'm keeping the hi-hat pretty tight. And in the second half, it's open up a little bit, and then gradually gets louder and louder until we build back into the chorus. Again, something used by people like Dave Grohl, loads of rock drummers, countless drummers the world over, but it really works for the song, and if it's placed correctly, then it lifts the music, and that's what these drum parts are all about. Also, I add hi-hat swoops, and I add drags and different combinations of offbeats and double backbeats in a specific pattern that just keeps the song moving along. So it's not just the same beat all the way through. So in the second half, I open up the hi-hat and I add a different combination, as I said, of backbeats and hi-hat swoops. I change it every so often live, but I make sure that I keep the variance, the same each time. So while I might change where I start some of the offbeats, you know, and the hi-hat swoops, things like that, it's always going to be the same, so that there's an A-B feeling to the whole groove. I'll play it again. That kind of thing. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. I think that's one of the things I like to do the most is create it's not just a repetitive groove. It's got to have a little bit of a story to it. So it might take 2 or even 4 bars to resolve a groove, and I'll do that quite a lot in songs without sort of taking away from the music, because a lot of the great drummers that I like do that. Dave Grohl, Roger Taylor from Queen, all these people. It's like story drumming that keeps the music up. At the end of the verse, there's just a really simple triplet fill around the kit to take us into the next chorus. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. That's all it is, and it starts with a little drag as well. Actually, I lie. There's a small open hi-hat kick swoop thing before that. 1, a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. 1, a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Like that. So it joins onto the groove a little bit better that way. Yeah, it's just leaving out the first note of the triplet. That leaving out the 1 gives it a more of a song kind of feel, rather than going. I love doing stuff like that. Cool. Onto the chorus groove. So the chorus groove is kind of interesting. It's very similar to the intro groove, but there's bits of it that accent the vocals. So you'll hear like a driving kick drum figure like that in place of some of the swung kick drum patterns, which goes usually at the end of each cycle that the vocals follow. So I'll just play it. So you'll see every 4 bars I did, and that's to go with the lyrics that Matt is singing in the song. So if you go and listen to the song, available on all good streaming platforms, Iamwarface, here of the Dragon, all good streaming platforms, available on red vinyl from Iamwarface.com. If you go and listen to the song there, you'll hear what I mean a little bit more detail. But he goes, I would do anything to win back your heart. And that's basically, that's why I do that there, and it fits really well. So basically that's the chorus groove, and you'll see it's again like the verse groove. It's in 2 halves, and the first half of the groove I do like a little drag in the middle, and then the second half I make that into a solid offbeat on the snare, and that's just to give it a sense of movement and again storytelling, because the vocals take a long time to resolve the lyrics. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm following the vocals. You'll also notice in the song, there's a figure that goes. So basically, that's like a different kind of pickup to go into, like, there's like a post-chorus section, or like a bridge or whatever you want to call it. I'll call it a post-chorus or a tag. And there's 2 different ones that happen in the song. The first one is what I'm about to play. and the second one is before the drum break, which I'll explain in a little bit. So we've got, this sounds like this basically. I will play from the chorus into the tag bit and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so basically from where the kick drum turned into the driving notes, 4 to the floor, bass drum, it's called 4 to the floor because you're playing quarter notes, just one after the other on the drum that's on the floor. So if you didn't know that, that's what that is, but the bit that sounds like this. Okay, so you can see I broke that up with some tom figures. And then. So basically they're the kind of things that just add momentum to the song. They follow exactly what's happening with the guitars and the keyboards, and they just underpin the vocals. And there's a straight one. And there's like a triplet one, which is 4 notes long. Like that, and then I do the straight one again. Like that. Okay. Really simple, but it's great for momentum in the song, and I think tonally, just using the toms like that with big open notes really adds a lot. So yeah, think about that when you're making up your own drum parts. Then after that, it goes into like a second half of the breakdown, which involves like a triplet. It involves a triplet roll between the tom-toms and the kick drum with crashes and a double backbeat, which sounds way more flashy than what I'm actually doing. The hand pattern is basically a running triplet with kick drums thrown in, and then the backbeat is doubled. So the backbeat is played with 2 hands, alternating hands. It's an alternating hand pattern. There's nothing that kind of plays together apart from when I hit the kick drum and the crashes, and the part sounds like this. So what's happening in that section is, as I said, it's a running pattern, alternating hands, playing a triplet feel with some crashes and double backbeats. And to add weight to it, the right foot is following the right hand. Okay, so that gives it heaviness, and it also makes it easier to crash. It makes sense basically. And the pattern just is like this. Like that. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So those 3 ands that I'm saying really loudly, that indicates the double snare backbeat, okay? I'll slow it down a little bit. Like that, okay? It's actually almost makes less sense slowed down because you can't hear how the floor tom and the kick drum drive together doing the same thing. Okay, so like if I took out everything, if I took the left hand out, your right hand would be doing this. Just 1/2 of a triplet, that's all it is. The challenging part about doing it is just making sure that it's really accurate and even, and that you land it nicely coming out of the part before. And that's our job as drummers. But basically, at the end of that triplet figure that I just explained, there's the 4 and. That little pickup that I mentioned at the beginning, that happens again. Like that, okay? And I do there's a little double kick figure there. Like that. Right, left. You can do it with 1 foot, but I like to use 2 because it's clearer, the notes are clearer, and it has more of like a ripping kind of sound rather than, you know. 1 and a 2 and rapper. 1 and a 2 or 3 and a 4 and a rapper. 1 and a 2 and a 4, whatever it is. That's where it fits. Pretty simple. Simple, medley kind of stuff. Okay, verse 2. Okay, so basically it's a very similar kind of thing. I do vary where I put those bookend kind of double backbeats, hi-hat swoops when I play it live, but again the variance is always going to be the same, so there's always like a B kind of feeling to the whole thing. Live and in the video playthrough, I like to add a cymbal choke there halfway through because it just adds a little bit of variation and it sounds kind of mean against what the rest of the band is doing. The rest of the band is not choking there, but I do a choke and I feel like it lets the rest of the sounds kind of punch through that little gap. So it's kind of like this. So basically, instead of going, I'm moving the right hand of the flam over to the floor tom, which I think makes it sound heavier. So I'm playing the floor tom first. So this is actually a left hand flam. Okay, and a little cymbal choke after that. I embellish the triplet roll going into the next chorus. So instead of going this time, I kind of add a 30-second note figure with a kick drum underneath the front of it. So it sounds like, or sometimes I might go, depends what I feel like. Okay, so it's basically just a standard open triplet, alternating hand triplet, except instead of going at the beginning, I have 1 and a 4 and a 1 but a 4 and a. Again, it's one of those simple things that just sounds really nice when everything's placed correctly, especially with the kick drum against the 30-second note tom thing at the beginning. If that's placed correctly, it just has it's like a nice kind of rip-in sound and just gives the fill a little bit more flair. But otherwise, it's a pretty standard alternating hand triplet roll. Okay, next chorus, very similar to the one before. So as you can see, the structure of that beat, that chorus beat, is very much the same thing. Again, I forgot to mention in the first run through, but Matt sings you, something like that. I'm singing out of tune. But when I go you, he's saying the word you over it. And so I do the 4 on the floor kick drum with snare offbeats and the china, just to kind of accentuate that vocal bit. But you'll notice that at the end, there's some snare triplets with crashes in between, and then a little fill at the end, followed by the flam kick pickup. And the reason that's there is the riff changes slightly, and Matt continues the lyrics into the next section, and that's why we needed something else to happen on the drums there. So it sounds like this. I think on the original demo of the song, we had the pickups and the roll was simpler, so I just added in some 30-second notes just to spice it up. So that's the kind of thing I'll do, because it's leading somewhere, that's where it's appropriate for me to chuck in something slightly busier, just for a second, for a nanosecond. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a okay. So it's a 5-stroke roll. It's a 5-stroke kind of rough roll thing, single strokes into a normal triplet. So we've got normal kind of triplets with kick crashes in between. And then after that, which underscores Matt singing "To Win Back Your Heart," so that goes perfectly with what he's singing. And at the end, instead of going again, I go, and there I'm using the China because it's more aggressive, and I'm using a floor tom snare drum kind of flam because it adds finality. So there's a cymbal hang at the end of that figure, and a guitar starts up on its own. So that's like tension. So that's where the drums drop out for, it's like 4 bars. And at the end, I just do a little count in. 1, 2, 3, 4 with a double on my left hand at the beginning. Again, I just like to add that little double drag thing at the beginning to add some grease to it. Just makes it sound a little bit more fun. And then we have the beginning of the breakdown section. Okay, so this is basically, I'll do it in chunks. The first chunk is it's like a broken up triplet groove. The right hand and the right foot kind of join together a lot in this. So the coordination for it, again, it's nothing special, but you just got to place it in the right way. And one thing that I used to do wrong when I first started playing this song, well, wrong to my ears, is that I would play it too much like a swung triplet, but actually, just like the verses and the choruses, you need to keep the right hand playing the 8th notes, or quavers, really straight against what the kick and the snare are doing, because the kick and the snare are swinging the groove, but the quavers here are mostly the same volume and they are more straight feeling, and that actually holds the whole song together. If you start to swing the whole thing, it ends up with this really wishy-washy jazzy feeling, which I don't know why, it just doesn't work. The groove sounds like this. Hands are doing there and what the foot is doing, neither is complicated. It's just about sort of weaving them together so that they make a nice flowing sounding pattern that is way more complicated sounding than it is to actually play. So I'm going to take the foot out and show you the hands first. That's the basis of it. I haven't done the embellishments yet. If I put the foot pattern in, groove. That's the basis of it. So there's three different things that happen there. There's a backbeat. That. So that happens the second time around, and then on the next revolution, I do a flam and a triplet combination. With like that 3/4 kind of feel, and then I start with a crash. And then just add in a very kind of smooth triplet like we did in the beginning of the song. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. There's 4 little sections to it. Double backbeat, flam, tom figure, double backbeat, triplet thing. After that, we have it's not a solo, but it's just some little roughs around the kit. Again, the swaps between the roughs and straight triplets. It's a pretty kind of standard rock thing to do. That's it. Okay, that just sounds really nice when you speed it up and move it around the kit. The next section is more open-handed triplets, and this is basically something I think that's nicked from No One Knows by Queens of the Stone Age. That's where it comes from. So the section is basically playing the triplet between the cymbals, the crashes, and the snare, with kicks, hitting every time you hit one of the crashes, of course. And then there's like a slightly embellished triplet fill to finish it off. Okay, so the hand pattern is just going to be etc. And there's some embellishments where I swap some of the snares out with the right hand for floor toms. And basically it's just on the first right and left of each half of the triplet. Okay, so you can see the front half of it is slightly longer than the rest of it. And there's 4 like chunks to it, and that's where I add the floor toms. So it adds texture, and it also adds a marker to where we are. So the fourth time I hit the floor tom is also the last part of that triplet section before I do the drum fill. Following that is okay, and again, just like one of the fills earlier, I like to precede it with a kick drum because it gives the fill a kind of weight in the beginning, displaces where the 30-second note, where those things happen, and just gives it kind of, again, like that sort of rip-in feeling. It's not very difficult to play at all. It's just a couple of quick notes in succession. but it just really works for that section of the song. I suppose those, it's not like a hairter, but it's in that family. So I'm not doing, it's not like that. But it's a similar kind of thing to a hairter. The final chorus, Matt changes his vocal line because the guitars change, and I then change some of the embellishments I do at the end of each little cycle. So we have the same underlying groove. You are the red queen, I am the low dog, fits with those lyrics. But then I do double kick triplets there. So if you don't have a double kick pedal, you could either leave them out and just play, okay, or you could figure something out between the toms. But it's not a terribly difficult part. The hardest part about it is just maintaining accuracy and power because it's kind of slow, and sometimes that's a bit more annoying to do. So we have this. So it's just. So that's the figure I play. I played the one figure 4 times in a row so that you could hear it. That's all I'm doing. The hardest part about that is just when you play the triplets on your feet, you've got a crash landing on the first right foot and then the first left foot of the triplet. But basically I just don't think about it too hard and it happens kind of naturally. As you think about it, it's the kind of thing that slops out a little bit. So I'll do that a couple times in a row. And a full and. Now that is not on the recorded version of the song. I do something straighter on the recording. However, live, I just feel like that sort of slow 8th note triplet thing. I feel like that adds like a really nice weight to it. You just got to make sure to come out of that slowing down kind of feeling back on one really tight. That's the only thing that you can do wrong there is you can slow down the whole groove. So I'll do it again there after the slow triplet on the toms, same double kick thing, and then I bring back a theme from earlier. It's just a little pickup. That's from the end of the first chorus. I use that again there, so that's the end of the song now, and it's a little bookend thing, and then we just go straight into the tail of the song where we have the main riff playing. But I make it sound heavier by running 16th note double kicks. Not fast, but just keeping it accurate. That's the key. That's it. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3, and at the end. It's like those little pickups we use throughout the song. We just make sure it's a little more straightened out, and we choke the last note to make sure that there's like finality to it. Okay, so that's a slowed down version of the end pattern. Much harder to play that slowed down, I must say, because you've got that, the straight crashes against the rights and the lefts of the triplet. Okay, so try not to think too hard about that one. Once you know the pattern, you're just off and running. If you're new to double bass, it's one of those kind of standard patterns that's really good to get to grips with. It's just an introductory kind of thing, but it really works well for the song, and that's why I used it here. Thank you very much for listening to my Red Queen drum lesson. I hope it's been informative. I've certainly waffled on for a very long time. But yeah, let me know what you thought. If you'd like to know anything different, if you'd like me to break things down differently, and I'll be back with some more songs soon. More Iamwarface, more other stuff.